no longer resembled what God had created. The earth, once filled with laughter, harmony, and the whisper of Eden, was now drowned in a constant noise of violence. Cities grew without restraint, men took whatever they desired, and justice had become a forgotten memory. Corruption was not only in the streets but in the hearts. The thoughts of men were wicked, day after day. The strong oppressed the weak, the rich exploited the poor, and the powerful crowned themselves as gods over other men. Creation wept. The innocence of the first days was lost, replaced by an unending hunger for pleasure, power, and blood. Then something happened, something that sealed the darkness of the ancient world. The scriptures say, "When men began to multiply upon the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took for themselves wives from among all whom they chose." These were the days of the Nephilim, the giants, the mighty ones who ruled the earth. A hybrid generation, born from the union between the celestial and the human, a symbol of the deepest rebellion, the attempt to merge with the divine without obeying God. What was meant to be a world of life became a stage of spiritual darkness. Heaven watched in silence. The Creator saw his creation destroying itself with its own hands. Each day, the earth was stained with blood, and the cries of the oppressed rose to the throne of the Most High. God saw that the wickedness of man was great upon the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the heart of God was grieved. Yes, the heart of the Creator, the very one who had said, "Let there be light," now broke because of the darkness of his own creation. The love that had formed man with his hands now faced the pain of seeing him corrupted to the core. Then, a divine voice echoed through the silence of the heavens. "My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh. His days shall be 120 years. God limited human life to 120 years because of man's carnality. Life, which once stretched across centuries, would now be shortened. God set the days of man to restrain the spread of evil, to prevent iniquity from multiplying without end. 120 years, a time of grace, a boundary for sin, a heavenly clock that began ticking down toward judgment. And while men kept laughing, building empires, and worshiping idols of stone, heaven had already declared their fate. Sometimes, God's judgment doesn't come with thunder or fire. Sometimes, it comes in silence, with an invisible countdown. And in the midst of that decaying world, in a generation marked by violence and pride, one man caught the attention of heaven. His name was Noah, a different kind of man. A man who still heard the voice of God when the rest of the world had already forgotten it. He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. His lineage would become the new beginning. While humanity drowned in corruption and violence, Noah lived with a faith that defied his time. He was neither a king nor a warrior. He was a simple man, but his heart belonged to God. In a world that had forgotten goodness, Noah remembered what it meant to obey. The scriptures describe him with a single powerful phrase. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. To walk with God, that expression, lost through the ages, was not a mere symbol. It meant living in alignment with the Creator's heart, hearing his voice and trusting it, even when it made no sense. And it was that communion that set him apart from the rest. One night, as the wind whispered through the trees and the earth seemed to sleep, The voice of God broke the silence of the universe. The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Noah trembled. It was not a warning, it was a sentence. Heaven had declared the end, yet even in judgment, there was a plan of salvation.
Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and seal it with pitch inside and out. A covenant, a sacred promise. While the world sealed its fate in wickedness, God sealed an alliance with a man who still believed. Imagine the moment. A man standing on dry land, hearing an impossible command. Build an ark. Prepare for a flood when rain had never fallen. Announce to the world that God's judgment was near. The clock of heaven kept ticking. 120 years to build an ark. 120 years to warn the world. 120 years to prove that faith can save, even when all else is lost. While the earth kept celebrating, while cities grew and men surrendered to sin, a hammer struck the wood. And that sound, in the midst of the world's spiritual silence, was the first echo of divine grace. Noah began to build the ark. Each strike of the hammer was a declaration of faith, each cut a prayer, and every day of work a silent sermon to the world that watched him. Men gathered around him, laughing.
Men gathered around him, laughing. What are you doing, Noah? You're building a ship on dry land. Do you expect to sail over the dust? But Noah did not answer. His hands remained steady, his eyes fixed on the purpose God had revealed to him. Day after day, year after year, the work advanced. The structure of gopher wood rose tall and majestic, massive as a mountain, defiant as the faith that inspired it. 3 decks, a system of compartments, one single door, one single window above. It was more than a refuge. It was a symbol, a visible testimony of God's faithfulness and of the patience of a man who believed without seeing. The mockery grew. Some called him mad, others a fanatic. Children threw stones at the unfinished hull. The elders laughed as they saw him measuring dimensions he claimed were given from heaven. But Noah did not stop. For decades, he preached righteousness, warning the people,
El juicio de Dios viene. Arrepentíos. Buscad su rostro antes de que sea tarde.
But no one listened. The echo of his words was lost amid laughter, music, and feasting. They thought the sun would always rise, that the earth belonged to them. And yet, divine patience kept granting time. The hammer kept striking, reminding heaven that there was still one righteous man on the earth. As Noah worked, his family stood by him. His sons learned to saw, measure, and fit the planks together. His wife prepared their meals while listening to her husband speak of a flood that still seemed impossible. They were a family bound not by logic, but by faith. And every nail, every plank, every drop of sweat became a tangible prayer.
Señor, cumpliré lo que me has pedido, aunque nadie me entienda.
120 years of work, 120 years of faith without visible reward, 120 years of mockery. And yet, the instrument of the world's salvation, and when the ark finally stood complete, majestic and silent upon the plain, the wind itself seemed to stop. Noah lowered his hammer. It was finished. What had begun with a word from God was now a tangible reality before the eyes of an unbelieving world. One dawn, Noah heard the voice of God once more.
Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation.
Noah's heart trembled. They were not just words. They were the sign he had waited for over a century. The time had come. God had decided to act. The Creator gave him 7 days, 7 dawns of mercy before judgment. 7 days in which the earth still breathed, unaware it was living its final week. Then, something extraordinary began to happen. 2 by 2, they marched toward the ark, lions and gazelles, wolves and lambs, serpents and birds of every color. Noah watched them arrive, guided by an instinct not of this world. Creation obeyed, while mankind kept laughing. The heavens were silent. No wind, no thunder, not a single drop. Only the whisper of God's Spirit moving among the clouds. Noah stepped forward. He entered the ark. His family followed. And then something happened that humanity would never forget. It was not Noah who closed it, nor his sons. It was God Himself. With a single motion, the Creator sealed the covenant. The ark became the line between life and death, between grace and judgment. Outside, people kept laughing, singing, celebrating. They believed nothing would happen. The wind shifted direction, and for the first time in the history of the world, the first drop of rain fell. What began as a gentle drizzle soon turned into unleashed fury. Thunder roared like lions over the mountains, and lightning cut through the heavens like blazing swords. The sound of water striking the ground mixed with the screams of people running for shelter. The mountains began to shake. Springs burst forth with supernatural force. Rivers overflowed, and the seas began to rise as if awakening from an eternal sleep. The heavens wept, and the earth groaned. Inside the ark, Noah held his wife close. His sons watched through the small openings as the rain swallowed everything they had ever known. The animals stirred restlessly, as if they understood that the roar outside was not natural but divine. Outside, men pounded on the ark's doors.
¡Noé! ¡Ábrenos! ¡Nos equivocamos! ¡Sálvanos!
But the mercy they had despised for years was no longer available. Noah could not open the door. The judgment had begun. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain did not stop. Not a single ray of sunlight pierced the clouds. The earth became a boundless sea. The mighty, the kings, the wise, all were made equal by the power of the water. The flood was not only destruction, it was cleansing, a divine reset, a new beginning for humanity. For 40 days, the roar of the waters was the only voice upon the earth. And when the last thunder faded and the rain ceased, only the sound of the wind remained. The entire world had been transformed. And upon an endless, horizonless ocean, floated the ark, the eternal symbol of God's grace amid judgment. Noah sat beside the small window above, gazing at the still horizon. His hands, hardened by years of labor, held the edge of the wood, while his heart whispered a single prayer.
Señor, no te olvides de nosotros, por favor.
And though the silence seemed endless, God had not forgotten. The Creator who had sent the flood had also prepared the exact moment for a new beginning. A wind began to blow. At first, it was only a faint breeze, but soon, the air grew cooler and the sky grew brighter. The clouds parted like curtains, and for the first time in months, a ray of light pierced through the roof of the ark. The waters began to recede slowly. The mountain peaks emerged once more, like distant islands. The roar of the torrents faded into the whisper of gentle streams. The world that had been swallowed by judgment now breathed beneath a renewed sky. Inside the ark, hope was reborn. The animals stirred with restless energy. Birds pecked at the floor, lambs huddled closer together, and Noah's sons looked at their father with eyes full of faith. Each day, Noah opened the small window and gazed outside, searching for signs of dry land. He knew the time of confinement would soon end, but he also knew that patience was part of the plan. Faith does not only build, faith also waits. Then one day, the ark stopped moving. The ground had reappeared. Noah's heart understood. It was not yet time. Days passed. The sky grew clearer. The sun warmed the planks of the ark. Then Noah decided to try again, but this time, not with a raven, but with a dove. He held it gently in his hands, its white feathers gleaming against the dark wood. Whispering a prayer, he released it. The dove rose into the sky and vanished over the horizon. The ark returned to silence. Hours later, the bird came back, fluttering wearily until it rested on Noah's shoulder. It carried something in its beak, a small olive leaf. Noah's eyes filled with tears. That tiny leaf was the message he had waited for all those months. Life had returned. The waters were retreating. The earth was breathing again. And the Creator, faithful to his word, was preparing the new beginning. A week later, Noah released the dove once more. It had found a place to rest, and in that silence, Noah understood. The message needed no words. The dove had carried more than a leaf, it had carried a promise. The sign that God's mercy is stronger than any judgment. Then, the voice of God spoke once more, clear and gentle as in the beginning.
Come out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living creature of all flesh that is with you, birds, animals, and every creeping thing that moves upon the earth, so that they may abound on the earth and be fruitful and multiply upon it.
The old patriarch took a deep breath, his eyes filled with tears. For months, he had dreamed of this moment. Now, the command was clear. Go out and begin again. The door of the ark, the one God himself had closed, was opened. The creak of its hinges echoed like a song of freedom. Fresh air rushed in, brushing against the faces of Noah and his family. One by one, the animals began to leave. The birds took flight in flocks that painted the sky. Deer and horses ran across the damp grass. Lions and tigers slipped quietly toward the mountains. Creation itself returned to take its place in the new world. Noah and his family stepped out slowly, their feet sinking into the soft earth. They looked at one another, then lifted their eyes to the heavens. Nothing remained of the old world, only a virgin landscape, ready to bloom again. And then Noah did what he had always done, when he no longer knew what else to do. He worshipped. He gathered stones, built an altar, and offered sacrifices of gratitude to God, not for what he had lost, but for what had been preserved. For life, for the promise, for the mercy that had sustained them in the midst of judgment. And the Lord smelled a pleasing aroma, and the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. Nor will I ever again destroy every living thing, as I have done. In that moment, the Creator established a new beginning. Judgment had fulfilled its purpose, but mercy would be eternal. The sun shone brighter. The fields, still wet, began to fill with green shoots. Streams flowed down the mountains, and the songs of birds filled the air. Noah looked at his sons young and full of hope. Shem, Ham, and Japheth gazed upon the land in awe, as if beholding a restored Eden. They were the new founders of humanity, and behind them, the echo of God's promise still resounded. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. The flood had purified the earth. Now a new story began. A story written with tears, faith, and gratitude. And on the horizon, the sky was preparing to reveal the most beautiful sign of all. As God spoke, the clouds began to part slowly. A beam of light descended from heaven and broke into 1,000 colors across the mist of dawn. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. A great arc of light stretched from one end of the sky to the other. The first rainbow, the visible covenant between the Creator and his creation. Noah gazed upon it with tears in his eyes. Each color was a promise, each shimmer a silent word from the heart of God. This is the sign of the covenant which I establish between me and you, and every living creature that is with you, for perpetual generations. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be for a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. That rainbow was not merely a decoration in the sky. It was a divine signature, a reminder that although the heart of man remains fragile, the mercy of God is greater than his sin. His wife, his sons, and their wives paused from their work and looked upon the multicolored ark. No one spoke. There was no need. The silence was filled with presence. For the first time since the flood, they smiled the smile of those who had witnessed justice and grace coexist in perfect harmony. Time passed. The fields began to bloom, the trees bore fruit, and the waters of the flood became rivers and lakes that nourished the new earth. Humanity was reborn, and life multiplied just as God had promised. Shem, Ham, and Japheth built their homes, planted crops, raised animals, and the name of God continued to be remembered with gratitude. But as the years went by, the human heart once again revealed what had always been within it, its weakness. The man who had endured the flood, who had obeyed without hesitation, now faced a quieter test, the test of prosperity. And the scriptures say, "And Noah began to till the ground, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and became drunk and was uncovered within his tent." The patriarch, the man who had been righteous among corrupt generations, fell victim to his own humanity. In his tent, alone and silent, the hero of faith showed his weakness. His son Ham saw him. He entered, looked upon the scene, and instead of covering his father's shame, went out and mocked him before his brothers. The irreverence of his heart stood in sharp contrast to his father's faithfulness. But Shem and Japheth, when they heard what had happened, took a garment, placed it upon their shoulders, and walked backward, not looking, to cover Noah's nakedness. It was an act of respect, of honor, and of compassion. When Noah awoke from his drunkenness, he knew what had been done. The pain he felt was not only physical, but deeply spiritual. He had fallen, and his own weakness had revealed that of his family. Then he spoke prophetic words that would echo through generations.
Maldito sea Canaán, siervo de siervo será a sus hermanos. Bendito por Jehová.
Noah grew old. His face, marked by years and tears, still shone with unshakable serenity. He had seen justice, judgment, salvation, and shame, and in all of it, he had found God. The years passed. The earth was once again filled with life, and Noah's sons became the founders of new generations. From Shem, Ham, and Japheth came a new world. Their descendants spread through valleys, coasts, and mountains, raising cities, languages, and cultures. Noah's legacy was not merely biological, it was spiritual. A legacy of faith, obedience, and perseverance. An eternal testimony that one single man, when he listens to the voice of God and obeys, can change the destiny of the world. Scripture records that Noah lived 950 years. He witnessed his family grow, the earth repopulate, and God's promise continue to be fulfilled generation after generation. Noah, now aged and wise, looked upon the world from afar. He knew that history tends to repeat itself when men forget their roots. Yet his heart was not filled with sorrow, but with peace. For he had fulfilled his mission. He had been the bridge between the world destroyed and the world restored. He had walked with God, and that was enough. When his time came, Noah departed in peace. The man who had defied an entire generation through faith, who had endured the flood, who had seen the ark of promise, closed his eyes knowing he had obeyed. Noah left behind no monuments of stone, no earthly kingdoms. His legacy was far more enduring, a story of faith that would cross the ages. To this day, his name remains a symbol of obedience, perseverance, and hope. And every time the sky reveals a rainbow, humanity remembers. In the days of Noah, mankind ignored the warnings. They laughed, they doubted, and they went on with their lives until it was too late. Centuries later, Jesus remembered these words and said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man." They were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. But the message of Noah still stands. The grace of God is still open. The door of the spiritual ark, Christ, remains open for anyone who chooses to enter. There is still time, but it will not last forever. The flood of Noah cleansed the earth. The next judgment will purify hearts. If this message touched your heart, if it reminded you that God still keeps His promises, I invite you to be part of this mission. Give this video a like so that more people can discover this message of hope. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next biblical stories that continue transforming lives. Share it with someone who needs to remember that the grace of God always arrives right on time. May God bless you greatly. Amen.